Ms. Leah Powers has the first question to begin. And the first question is, what is the most important issue before the city at this time?
Well, the most important issue is twofold. Number one, it's sustainable jobs, as we all mentioned earlier. And through sustainable jobs, we would increase our tax base and our revenues. The second most important thing right now are our taxes. I attended the work session on Tuesday, and our taxes originally were projected to go up 17 cents. Through some creative thinking on the part of Mr. Benzandi, it was brought back down to about 14%. I think over the past several years, if there's been a tax and when there's been a tax increase, except for the Fairmount School, there are ways to reduce that by going into the budget and being especially creative. I believe I have those skills as the financial officer of our family's business. I deal on a day-to-day basis with payroll taxes, with property taxes, with income taxes. We're taxed to death. So to be looking at another tax increase on top of all of the other federal and county taxes. Someone said today that actually works for the city that the city is like a family. And we have to understand that gas has gone up, materials have gone up, taxes have gone up. And, we have to act as a family, so we've got to allot ourselves more money. That is so foreign to my thinking as a family member. I don't automatically get a raise because my taxes went up. I don't automatically have a reduction in my food costs because I don't have the money to pay it. I see jobs and I see taxes as our two most concerning issues today.
I think that in terms of creating jobs, we can do so by not only reaching out, which was pointed out by the website issues that Leah Powers pointed out too, but we can not dissuade outside companies from coming in. I've heard some horror stories about companies that tried to come in and were basically driven away. They weren't given an opportunity. I'm not sure their voice was heard. I'm not even sure the community knows about same. One of the other issues, I think, is that as King College goes to King University and brings people here via education, that will impact us by bringing a whole new cadre of industries that will create things here technologically. And so that is a huge proposition, and Bristol needs to get behind that. And finally, one thing I've not heard, and I'm short-winded here, I guess, is that taxation might be helped by annexing adjacent territories. I know there are some people that don't want to be annexed, but there are other folks that would say that they would appreciate annexation by bringing water and sewage in. Those folks contribute, they benefit, and Bristol could grow. Our adjacent cities have not have done so, and we haven't. We've stayed small, although we've reached a critical mass nucleus to kind of take off, and I think that would help. Thank you.
I too think that jobs is one of our is the number one issue. It's actually the number one issue nationally. We need to look at this, and everybody needs to realize that we are in a stagnant economy, and we're going to be doing this a few more years. So the question is, how do you create jobs? How do you create jobs in a stagnant economy? And I believe it starts with education, as I mentioned a little while ago. Accelerate facilities upgrades if we can. New facilities help recruiting of new businesses. We need to provide resources for technology in the classroom. Invest in regional healthcare. I believe these things will help us to draw in new companies. And by the same token, we have to help our companies that are already here, our businesses that are already here, help them expand our tax base. All of these things, I think, will help us to promote Bristol as a great place to live. And it needs to involve all business sectors. The vision for Bristol needs to include all business sectors.
Thank you. Obviously there's going to be a theme. I would say it's economic development and education are the two most important things, and of course they're very related. Economic development, it means balancing some different things. It means balancing the needs of our local businesses with trying to attract companies who now can go any place in the world, entrepreneurs who can locate any place in the world. So to attract people and those sustainable jobs, we have to have a good quality of life, and that's how we look, that's what we offer, that's what goes on in our community, that's also our education system. Those things cost money. Over the past 10 years, with Rhythm and Roots, with the birthplace of country music, with the different things that we've been doing, the city has participated, and those things cost money. And unfortunately, that sometimes means tax increase. A new school means tax increase. Maintaining good fiscal responsibility means sometimes tax increase. We've had a tradition of trying to do it only every 4 years. Unfortunately, this is the 4th year. And we are looking at what it takes to maintain and to be able to move ahead, because if we talk about stagnation, if we don't keep up, we're going to get behind. We're already, during this fiscal downturn, our capital budget, we have decreased, we have held things off, we have tried not to spend too much, and you can only do that for so long. And education, very important. I feel like we've done a lot. New school, we have a strategic plan that includes stuff for education. The schools have done a strategic plan. There's a lot going on. We're doing our best. We're going to build a middle school, but we have to have the capacity to do that with our taxes. Thank you very much.
Well, to answer the question, I believe that industry is the most important thing that we need to work on, and manufacturing, whether that's light, heavy, we have, as you look not too far from this facility, we have some great opportunities in land that's got nothing on it, that's ready. We have vacant facilities, and then even in my example, we have facilities up for sale that have a workforce that may or may not go with the company. I'm in some of that same uncertainty that many of us are that have faced these things, and whether I have a job in 6 months or not, I'm not sure, but we as a family have decided we're going to stay in this area and find opportunities or make opportunities for ourselves by working hard and being committed. The great thing about Tennessee is we have one of the best open for business states in the country. We're in that top 10. I believe we might even be in the top 5 depending on where we're ranked for 2013. I haven't heard that yet. But what I know is there are a number of people who are business owners that even have businesses in our Tri-Cities area, and they say, I'll do business in the other 2 cities, but I don't want to do business in Bristol. It's been difficult. I think some of that is communication. I think some of it's how we work with them, and when you sit down and explain things, it makes a difference. And then also education. We've got some great folks who are reaching out to our schools, helping kids understand what they can do for a career. You know, those kids who are artists might end up being graphic designers at a pharmaceutical company. They might end up doing artwork at 606. There's just a variety of opportunities they've got. And I think if we help them see that manufacturing, I'll go ahead and pass that, manufacturing has a variety of opportunity.
Yeah, I think that jobs, of course, we've got to stop every 4 years of raising our taxes to balance budget. We need revenue in the city. And one of the things I think that we need to do, just because we have an ordinance that we've put on the books, doesn't mean that ordinance is right for today. We need to go back and look at all of our ordinances and see what is there now, what we need for today. We've got to think outside the box. We cannot do things just because they're in every 4 years is when we have traditionally raised taxes. Well, just because we've done it that way for so many years, that doesn't make it right. Let's fix our budget. Let's get businesses in our city and selling it. As far as the website, you know, people are going and looking at our site and it says Bristol is open, and you look and it says 2008. Really? I mean, are we that far behind? Why would they want to come and take a look at Bristol? We have got to update that. We've got to do it now, and it should have been done earlier. But I think there's a lot of small things that could be done immediately to change our perspective. And I think for a lot of people that, you know, perception is reality. And when they go and they see these things, that's their reality. Thank you.
One of the main issues that we need to concentrate on, and I made this statement 4 years ago, is workforce development. If we were to have an industry come into Bristol, do we have an educated workforce to fill the jobs? My answer is no. We've been working on that diligently, combining with Northeast State, King College, and other universities to try to get a good, viable workforce to fill those jobs. We've had companies come and look. We don't have the people to fill the jobs. There are jobs in the industries at the industrial parks. Without a good education, you cannot fill those jobs. My prime thing is to go after the education to educate the people of the thing. And Dr. Lorio alluded to annexation to help the tax rate. Right now, there is a moratorium on annexation. So we cannot annex even if we wanted to at this point. So if we have a good workforce, the jobs will come. But we do need to educate our workforce to get them here.
You know, I think challenges ahead of us are to continue to have the best run city in the area. No offense, Don Ashley, sorry back there. And economic growth. Just in comparison, let me tell you a little bit about Bristol, and it's not going to help any of the challenges to brag on the things that we've got, but I don't mind to. Per capita debt, City of Bristol, Tennessee, about $670 per individual. Johnson City, about $2,500 per individual. Kingsport, Bristol, Virginia, about $3,500 per individual. During this horrible economic turndown that we've had for about 5 years here, there are cities across the country who were facing bankruptcy. We weathered the storm. We didn't lay off a single individual. We didn't cut a single service to any of our citizens. And we're coming out of it better than the communities around us. What's that able? We've beat Johnson City and Kingsport in economic growth about 2 or 3 of each of the quarters over the last 3 or 4 years. Last year, you may not even be aware of this, your city manager, Jeff Bruton, was named City Manager of the Year for the entire state of Tennessee. We've got a well-run community here, and the things that we've done and put things in place are going to net economic growth. But listen, don't take my word for it. Let me quote somebody for you here. This is the Sunday Kingsport Times. Sorry, Jim Maxwell, quotes in here. It's Sunday, November 18, 2012, Kingsport Times, and it's Kingsport talking about doing better marketing. Let me quote Mayor Phillips here. Bristol is eating our lunch. Later on in the story, let me give you another quote from Mayor Phillips. Toward the end of the story, he says, you know, in the direct quote, and it's not Johnson City we need to be worrying about in the next 10 years. It's Bristol.
Thank you all. Next up for first turn is Mr. Chad King. And the question is, what are your views on open elections for city elections, meaning no districts?
Did you say with no districts?
Correct.
I think our current election system is a little bit confusing. A lot of people in this election don't realize that they get 3 votes. if I understand your question correctly, you're talking about we have one election in 2 years that's at large, and we have another election this year that's the 3 districts, correct? That's what we're talking about. I think it's confusing. And I think unless you're really on top of it, a lot of people don't realize exactly how our voting process works. And so I would like to see a simplified version, either one way or the other. I'm not sure exactly what the best answer to that is, and I know this process that we have right now is a compromise from several years ago. But I do think it's confusing, and I would also, on the same thing on elections, if we can save $17,000 or $14,000, I don't remember exactly what the figure was, by having our elections in November, I don't know why we don't do that. I think we should do that.
Thank you. I could be open to discussion about open elections and find out what our citizens think. At this point, we did change it. It used to be 5 districts. We've changed to 3 and then 2 at large. I like having the districts because it guarantees that people are are spread out in the different parts of the community, so they're not all from one area. For me, it makes a difference. I travel my end of town, so I see more of what's going on down in my end. I might know some more of the people at that end. But I would entertain some discussion and looking at stats, et cetera, et cetera. For changing the election to November, I certainly would be open to talking about it, but I'm also concerned that it gets lost with the national and the local folks don't get a voice and don't get the issues out in the open because it's mixed up with the national. Thank you.
I do understand the function that we have now. You know, we don't want people from one neighborhood to be all 5 of our council people. We do want to have a representative sample, but as many times as I'm sure literally among the 8 of us here, probably over 1,000 times we've been asked, who are you running against? I see all these signs. No, I'm not that person's opponent. There's a lot of confusion on that, and I think that open election would alleviate some of that. And like I say, working through it to help understand is an important aspect. There is a lot of noise if you were to move that election to whether it's the May primary, if there is one in an even year, or an August primary, or a November primary, or a November general. Those are all opportunities that we should consider and see where that's best fit if we do move it from this current year. I do like the cost savings idea. Then also, one thing that an open election does, it makes it easier to change who the incumbents are. Right now, it's easier when you're just running, hey, if that person wins, or that person is the one you have to get the most votes, and it is difficult to unseat incumbents, as we've seen all the way up to the presidential election. There are opportunities in an at-large to change things more easily, and I think that's something that I've heard a lot of people seeing interest in, seeing new faces come around sometimes. So keep that in mind as you consider open elections.
I think I would be for the open election. It gives, I guess I'm in the South District, the same thing I said in my opening. I get asked almost every day, who are you running against? What district are you in? Can I vote for you? Can I also vote for them? And it is confusing. And if we would have the open seats the same way as the 2 candidates in the odd years, it would simplify things. Talking about new blood and people coming in and the candidates and replacing candidates. You know, I'm one that I think our city council, and bring it up now, that we need term limits in place. And let's open the seats up, because I'm running the South District, but for the entire city of Bristol. It's not just the South District. And let's put term limits in place, and let's keep fresh blood going through our city council, new ideas, and not have the career council people. Thank you.
I personally don't consider myself as a career council person, but I like the districts. I think a valid point was made about the people all could end up in one district and not have a good representation of the people in Bristol. I've seen that happen before. One way that we can solve some of this problem, we can educate the citizens of the district, and that would give them the understanding of our system, who's running against who, and who they have the rights to vote for. And I believe this is the best system. That's why we went to it. And as far as changing the election date, I believe that we changed it originally to this date to coincide at Sullivan County's request to change it to this date, and that's why we have it now.
Love this question. I fought open elections almost the entire time that I've been on city council. We've got an odd little system where you have 2 at large and 3 by district. It's odd, but it works perfectly for Bristol, and I'll tell you why. And you don't have to believe me. Talk to a political science professor. I happen to be married to one, Dr. Ann Shoemaker here, so I get a lot of facts. Open districts where everybody just throws their hat in the pool, tends to favor the folks who can spend the most money on the campaign. I don't think folks really like that. It also can mean that everybody winds up being on the city council from one neighborhood. I don't think you want that. The people who are most likely to talk to you, the people who are most likely to share what's wrong with their neighborhood are the people who live in your neighborhood. You see them on the street, you know, they walk by your house. They know you and they're not scared to pick up the phone and call you. Studies have shown time and again, my wife showed me the studies that by throwing everybody in the same district, you could wind up with everybody looking the same. Doing away with districts also hurts people who have the least power in our community. I'm from the West District. I was born and raised down on Broad Street. I still live in the West District, spent almost my whole life in the West District. The West District tends to be the least represented area in our community. If you don't, let's say Joe here doesn't want to run against me in a campaign, all he's got to do is wait 2 years and he can run at large. You could choose to run against somebody that you think you would be better from. That's what's going on here in this race. Or you can wait and just throw your hat in the pool 2 years later. You never have to wait more than 2 years. If you want to run at large, that's fine. So we allow, in this case, possibly 3 people from a neighborhood, but not everybody.
I keep standing up because there are several in the back that I'm sure can't see. The system as it is now, I think that it provides for great representation across the city. I think that if we went to 5 at a time, that it could displace people in their representation. So I support where we are now. Where we would, were we to change it to November, I would be open to hearing about that. But to touch on some of what Vince had to say, I am for term limits, pure and simply. I did choose purposefully to run against David this time. David has been in office since 1998. I think it's time for a change. I think that there are a lot of things that we could be doing that we aren't doing. The reason that the people in Kingsport are scared to death of us is because they know what we've got here, and they know we haven't marketed, and they know if we ever pulled it all together, we would eat their lunch. But we haven't eaten their lunch because we haven't had the leadership that has pulled it all together, that has encouraged the economic development that this community needs and deserves. I am for term limits. When I am elected, one of the main things that I will work for are term limits of this city council. Thank you.
I think the at-large component allows for a popular vote that mimics the House of Representatives. The district component mimics basically Senate representation. So I believe it kind of mimics how our country was set up, and I like that idea. But I do believe that if we're going to talk about educating our public, we need to do a better job about educating our voters. And I've been trying to figure this out for a while as I entered this race. And so I think the current scenario does provide the best of both worlds. I do believe, though, the at-large candidate allows things to be shook up, as it were. Having said that, I think the 8 of us are shaking things up now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next one to begin the question is Mr. Vince Turner.